Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. Sorry. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt.
Welcome back to Whistleblower Wednesday, folks. The Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, President Trump's mail-in ballot and paper ballot initiative is popular. It's very popular. Rasmussen polling shows that it's 53% of the American people. That's across the board, not just Republicans. 53% majority agree with President Trump. And he said he intends to issue that executive order to eliminate mail-in voting, claiming it's corrupt and pushing for paper ballots instead on same-day voting, I hope. In March of this year, he already signed by far the most important executive order to date, securing future elections so that the Democrats or anybody else can't steal them. The EO will ensure federal funding, that's right, is cut to any state that refuses to secure our elections. But the bottom line is still machines. The machines are vulnerable, all of them, not just from one company. They're open to manipulation through various means that cannot be seen easily, if at all, by polling supervisors, election commissioners, poll workers, and poll watchers. Well, my guest today is leading in this effort from his foxhole to reestablish the integrity and security of our elections. Arkansas's retired U.S. Army Colonel Conrad Reynolds is the host of the Kernel of Truth podcast. He's a former intelligence officer, and he's fighting for election integrity. Election integrity, folks, leading the America Voter Integrity Initiative. Colonel Reynolds, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Rob, thank you so much. Great to be here and great to be with another patriot who's trying to do the right thing and save our country. Thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy like I am, so devoting an hour to talking about something, it's got to be important. This is the most important of all importance. I mean, even when you think about the Catholic school mass shooting today in Minneapolis, election security integrity is important to that not being an outcome, to be honest with you. Because it's the mess of elected officials up there that have set bad policy and allowed pure Marxist indoctrination in public schools that results in a trans terrorist attacking Christian kids, isn't it?
I think you're right, but I think that it gets its fingers into everything. I think that's the reason we now have almost a $37 trillion deficit, because they know. Or at least somehow they are told they know they're not going to lose an election. How is it that Congress has a 12% approval rating and a 98% reelection rate? How does that work? Yeah. I mean, I think that most people don't understand. And, for the first 200 and some odd years, all the way from our founding to George Bush in 2000, we accumulated $6 trillion worth of debt. Since then, since the machines have been in the process, after 2002 and the HAVE Act and all the money that went to get machines into all of the states, now we're at $37 trillion. We've added $31 trillion to our debt, and none of these people get voted out. I don't understand that. How is that possible? So I think these are things that we should all be looking at, but I've been fighting for this now for a little bit over 3 years, and I will tell you, everything that you led up to in your introduction into this segment is true. These machines, as been testified by our Director of Intelligence, Director Gabbard, was very clear on April the 11th in the cabinet meeting to President Trump that these machines have vulnerabilities that can be manipulated. They know that. And all that's going to come out. And I think what you're going to see is a very detailed report that's going to be quite lengthy, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, that will outline everything that we know about these machines. And one thing that we do know is that what we've been saying, they're made outside the United States. They have foreign parts that are primarily China, and that is that's what makes up our voting systems here in America. And somehow we're all supposed to just trust it, and it's supposed to be okay. And every cybersecurity expert, Rob, that I've talked to include the leading professors at Harvard and Princeton and Berkeley, have all said the gold standard for voting is a hand-marked paper ballot that is hand-counted. That cannot be manipulated. You can't hack a piece of paper. And you just have to have great chain of custody. And with cameras nowadays, with everybody with an iPhone, should be no problem. As we've already proven here in Arkansas and Searcy County, you can conduct easily an election with hand-marked paper ballots. We do not need these machines. And I'm telling you, after this report hits, everybody's going to understand we cannot continue, and Congress has to act. They have to codify what the president is putting down in his executive orders. And by the way, there's a new one that's going to be coming out very soon.
Yeah, I mentioned that first executive order, which is directed at the states and threatens their funding if they don't implement the right measures. And that's what one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Conrad. Yeah. But before I get to that, just remind everybody a little bit more about your background and why you're leading this effort, because I didn't talk about what you've been doing since you retired from the Army.
Well, I retired back in 2009, but since then I've done contract work with every three-lettered agency, as you well know, all over the world. I spent over 5 years in Afghanistan, a year in Iraq, trying to do the right thing and protect our soldiers and our troops and win the war. But since then, obviously I ran for political office and blah, blah, blah. But what I learned was that I was fooled on these machines. I believed what I was being told. But then when I did just a little bit of study, a little bit of reading, you realize you've been duped. You've been duped because you're forced to trust a company that you don't know who the owners are. You don't know who is behind the curtain that is investing in these companies. And you cannot read the source code to know exactly how it's counting your ballot. And then one thing I found very interesting when I started diving into this, almost all of the states that use these machines have extremely strict laws that prohibit you from actually doing a hand count of every race in your election. They won't let you do it. And they make sure it's almost impossible. You got to get a court order, and then you got to have standing. And it is a very, very thought through process to make sure that the average people, the average citizen, can never know whether these machines are counting properly or not. You'll never know. And so that's why we have to get rid of them. And President Trump understands that. I've spoken with him a couple of times talking about election integrity. He understands why we have to get rid of machines. Now, here in Arkansas, we have a machine problem. We don't have a mail-in ballot problem because we don't have mail-in ballots. We have absentees. I'm all for the absentee ballot, especially for military overseas, and a lot of people have medical reasons why they would need it. That's fine. Got no problem with that. I do have a problem with mail-out ballots because some of these states, that's almost exclusively what they do. In Oregon, every election is all mail-out ballot to everybody. This is a way to manipulate, as Jimmy Carter pointed out back in 20 years ago. So we need to fix that, and I think the president is on the right track. I know where his heart is. I know what he wants to get done, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people in Congress and in his administration who don't want that. And they're doing whatever they can to ensure that we don't get what we want.
Yeah, here in Mississippi, we have paper ballots, but they get scanned into a digital counter. But all the paper ballots go into a locked box. They're available to audit the count if it's necessary to do that. And everything's matched up from the sign-in book numbers to the total count and all that. But they still have USB ports on them, and they can be, they have to be moved from the centralized location. I participated in the certification of those scanners this last municipal election, and I was disturbed because they seal them up after we look at them, and the election supervisor demonstrates they're good, and does all the right things, and all of the ports are covered and sealed. But those are stored somewhere. They have to be moved to their voting locations. And every step of that, if somebody that's not responsible is not watching, then it's easy to open that tape up, because all it is a piece of tape, and have another piece of it and put back on it. If you have nefarious actors inside the system, and we know we do sometimes, because that's the nature of the business, then it's just so easy to mess with it.
The 1 or 2 county clerks or a few poll workers that may manipulate one particular county election, that's always possible. Here's what we have, though. We have a system that is capable of being manipulated, and you'll never know it. You'll never, ever know it. There's no way to check. The idea that these things are not online. This is the mantra over and over and over. I hear it in every state. They're not connected to the internet, blah, blah, blah. Well, you're putting thumb drives in every one of these.
They all have boot up software.
They all have boot up software. Most of the time come from where? They come from the machine companies. And you're not allowed to see or look into that. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you're going to find out when this report comes out, and this is my opinion, you're going to find out that there's other ways to manipulate. It doesn't have to be online. And you're going to find out that these machines, it can be manipulated. Every one of them, they can be. And the way that the footprints that are left are almost undetectable. And so that is the problem that we have currently, because the other side can argue, well, show us the proof. Show us exactly where, the ballot stuffing occurred. And when you are not able to do it because it's designed in such a way you will not be able to have that, they can say, well, see, you don't even know what you're talking about. I will tell you the biggest bamboozle that has happened in America is the invent and the absolute proliferation of these machines to every state. And it is a problem. I encourage your readers to go back, if you want to look a little history Go back and look at Dan Rather's investigative report in 2006, where he interviewed the 6 or 7 workers at Sequoia Paper Company that made the paper for Broward County. Go and look and listen to what they said. We're talking almost 20 years ago that they were interviewed, and they talked about that this paper was made in such a way that it would not work. They knew it. They knew it would not punch out. And they felt like it was a deliberate act by the paper company, because they didn't want to sign off on it, because they said it didn't have the right characteristics or tensile strength that paper would have to have for the paper for the Chad to pop off. And they said they didn't want to sign off on it, and they wouldn't sign off on it. And the supervisor had to come out and do it anyway, even though they said it was not good. So I think it's important for people to go back and look at that, because as we learned a long time ago, in order to change things like drastic, you got to have a crisis. So you invent a crisis, and then you're able to get Congress to act and put in money, and they did. They gave over $4 billion at the very beginning of this HAVA Act, the Help America Vote Act, to go in and give to all of these states free taxpayer money that went to where? Went to who? It went to the machine companies almost forever, because they say you got to have a machine for absentees. I mean, not for absentee, for handicapped people, which is not true, by the way. If you go back and read the HAVA, that is not true. It says a system. It doesn't say it's got to be an electronic system. But there are problems throughout the country, particularly right now, even in Louisiana. Big problem in Louisiana, right? Now, noticed that
big problem.
The Secretary of State there is saying, "Hey, I got a letter from the White House saying we can buy machines." That's not what that letter said. And if you go back and looked at it, it's completely in contradiction to what President Trump just put out a week ago last Monday, when he said in his Truth Social post, all machines, all mail-in ballots have to go, period.
Yeah.
He was not unequivocal about that. So
let's leave it right there. I got to take a break.
Go ahead.
I got to take a break. We'll pick it back up on the backside of this break, because you're right, Conrad. It's not just Democrats that want to stop the paper ballot and stopping mail-in initiative. We'll be right back with retired Colonel Conrad Reynolds.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet, and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor, and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
You made a comment at a cabinet secretary meeting that has stuck with our audience, and they'd really love an update on it. And it's about the 2020 election. And you were talking about the security of that election, and you were telling President Trump that there's been evidence that has been uncovered of potential breaches. I'm not exactly certain, but I'd love a follow-up on this. Here's the moment right here, and perhaps do you have any updates on the 2020 election or anything that you've found, Director?
The point that I was making there in the cabinet meeting was early discovery that I had seen from a whistleblower who came forward, who was working under CISA at that time, which is responsible for critical infrastructure and trying to protect against cyber vulnerabilities, critical infrastructure, including, of course, the integrity of our election systems. And what was interesting was seeing how this whistleblower brought forward information that CISA at that time, the federal government, was aware of vulnerabilities in our election machines, but they chose not to disclose that information to the American people or to the administration at that time. This is an area, of course, of critical importance, once again, for the American people to have faith in the integrity of our elections and that it is their voice that is heard through these elections. We're continuing to investigate this, and when we have information that we're ready to release, you'll hear about it.
Okay, so we're going to be hearing more on the 2020 election and some critical vulnerabilities.
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and my guest is retired U.S. Army Colonel Conrad Reynolds from Arkansas, who is a leader in the American Voter Integrity Initiative and has been advocating for paper ballots and stopping mail-in voting for over 3 years now. Has spoken to President Trump a couple of times about it. And Conrad, we were talking before the break that it's not just Democrats. There are people in the administration that the president is supposed to be on his side, and of course in the legislature and the Congress that oppose this initiative. And I got to be honest, down here in South Mississippi, we got a state senator named Jeremy England, and I'm not opposed to naming names. I mean, seems like a nice fellow, but he has submitted a bill for mail-in voting in Mississippi that got out of committee the second time in the last legislative session, and he's a Republican. Almost all of the state senators down here and state legislators in the coastal area of Mississippi are Republican. It's unbelievable that Republicans want to do that when we're over halfway there with paper ballots, that are auditable and they're secure, and you can do checks, the right kind of checks on things to make sure things are coming out right. And we want to do mail-in, and we've got a great absentee system that works very well for everybody that needs it. Veterans, the disabled, and the elderly that are homebound. We have a great system that already works, and these guys want to do it. What is the problem with Republicans?
I wish I knew, but I will tell you, in Arkansas, we're about a 70-30 state. In fact, we have a governor. We've got all of our constitutional officers. We have the supermajority in the House and in our Senate in Arkansas. 99.9% of them are against me and against what we're trying to do in the state of Arkansas. They just spew out exactly what the voting machine companies asked them to say. Apparently, it's all the same talking points. I've heard them in many other states. It's the same thing, and over again. Let me ask you something, Rob, and think about this a second. President Trump, again, a week ago last Monday, so we had a week and a half already. He said, I'm going to lead an effort. And he said for the Republicans to get rid of these machines and to get rid of mail-in ballots. Tell me one Republican governor who says, we agree and we're going to make that happen, Mr. President. Not one. Tell me one U.S. senator, Republican U.S. senator, who said that. Not one. And no congressman. When I was up there, and Will Huff and I have worked really, really hard trying to get Congress on board. There's an act called the Make Elections Secure Again Act, MESA, which is being pushed by Senator Pete Sessions out of Texas. And he's coming up, and we try to educate several Congress people, and we thought, hey, man, some of the ones that are on TV all the time saying they support Trump, they're going to do it. When you get them behind closed doors, then the excuses start coming out about why they really shouldn't be getting involved in the state elections and really shouldn't be making an effort on that, because these machine companies have a lot of power here on Capitol Hill. Yeah, that's what I heard. So I've heard that basically what you got here is President Trump has to lead. I told President Trump, I said, you can't push strings from the bottom. You got to pull them from the top. I learned that in the state of Arkansas. I've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders as our governor, who's, every time you turn around, there's a picture with her with the Trump administration and some activity, something that she's doing. But she is silent, doesn't say anything about it. She signed all of these bills that have punished counties to go on paper ballot. She signed that. But she's not said a word in support of President Trump's position here. And I would say to your state senator there, obviously you know more than the president and the director of national intelligence. Can you tell us what it is? What is it that you know that they don't? Because they're saying that these things are not safe. And same thing for all the professors and all the cybersecurity experts have been really screaming for years. No one's heard them, but they've all said you can't trust these systems. And I believe it 100%. We've got to get rid of them. And I think that if we did, you would start seeing in the primaries, you start seeing people getting beat and new people coming in. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a whole other discussion that we should devote an hour to someday, is how to defeat Republican incumbents in primaries that need to be defeated that aren't following Republican policy and platform planks.
Well, they don't have to now.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have to now because there's just very little accountability. And like you said, it's amazing. I had not linked that together, that all the way back to when they first started these machines, it's become increasingly difficult to unseat somebody, especially in federal
much more difficult. And they don't fear voting for a $1.7 trillion omnibus bill as a conservative Republican. They don't fear it because they know they're not. I say they know it. You know, the odds of them getting beat for whatever reason, whether it is manipulated votes or whatever, they don't fear that. And so that's a problem right now. And I think that you're going to get pushback from Republicans because the status quo is in. They don't want to lose what they've got. And I'm telling you, you're going to have the president, and you're going to have people calling your governor, calling your state, your U.S. Congress, your representatives, your states, your U.S. senators, and saying, hey, what's the problem here? Call your Secretary of State and say, what is it that you know more than the president? I think
what's the Mesa Act number again, Conrad? You have the number for that?
No. It's just called the Make Election Security Act. It's not finalized. We've helped along and with Congressman Pete Sessions, and the wording is done. It pretty much codifies everything, but I think they're kind of waiting on this new executive order that's coming out and trying to see what exactly is in that. But don't let anybody kid you, because what they'll tell you is you vote on a paper ballot. So you shouldn't have to worry about that, right? That's what they tell you. But what they don't tell you is that paper ballot has a barcode on the outside. That is what the tabulators use in order to determine that what your vote is. They turn that barcode turns that little dot that you circled. Is that what y'all do, the oval?
Yeah.
Okay. It puts that oval into a digit, a form.
Right.
You don't know what that is. And then that is fed into the computer. Very easy to manipulate later on. And it's almost impossible to go back and count those. And the audits they do are not audits. They say audit, but it's not. Here in Arkansas, they go, oh, we do an audit. 60,000 ballots. No. What they do is a spot check on one race. That's it. And they usually do it in the general. And it's usually the presidential or the governor's race. It's a race that doesn't need to be manipulated. Trump got almost 66 or 67% in Arkansas. There was no, there's no reason for that one to ever be manipulated, but they will not let you do a hand check on all the other races. Will not let you do it. And so, and that's not just Arkansas, it's every other state. I've seen that. And that's a problem. And I think that when you get hand counted paper ballots, we have to have small precincts in order to do it. Get rid of these vote centers. You go into small precincts like it used to be. That's what you have to have. No electronic poll books, paper poll books. You have to have that. And so, and we need to limit the, right now we need to limit the early voting. Oklahoma has 3 days. I'm not opposed to a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, and Monday, and then the election day. I'm not opposed to that at all. But you could save a ton of money by just reducing the early voting time. And that money can be used for counters and everything else. So one thing that we're pushing is for the federal government to have any money that goes to a state, the money goes to paper ballots and to counters, the labor it's used in order to count them. But nothing for machine companies. And that's what we're fighting for. I think we're going to get it.
Yeah, I think I made a mistake and it might have said mail-in ballots on that bill here. It's early voting. is what the issue is. And we don't need it. We have absentee voting you get 45 days if you qualify as absentee. And this early voting thing is just going to open the floodgates, and increase the potential for fraud and everything. We got to take another break. When we come back,
Okay.
We'll see another little clip. I want to ask Conrad about the constitutionality and where the federal and state split is in responsibility and power, because there is a split. A lot of people don't realize the federal government does have a role in setting election rules in a way. We'll be right back with the retired Colonel Conrad Roon.
We believe that this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the Republic to secure our elections. Among numerous other aspects of this executive order, this is going to cut down on illegal immigrants on the voter rolls, ensure that the Department of Homeland Security and the data that they have available is being fully weaponized to ensure that illegal immigrants aren't voting. This will include a citizenship question on the federal voting form for the first time. This executive order instructs the EAC to cut federal funding to states that don't take reasonable steps to secure their election. This calls on the Department of Justice to vigorously prosecute election crimes, particularly in states that we don't believe are in compliance with federal law around election integrity. I could go on and on for a while, sir, but the compliance with National Election Day rules, cracking down and investigating and prosecuting foreign interference in our elections, revoking President Biden's Executive Order 14019, which essentially weaponized government to corrupt and pollute our election process. There's a lot in here, but we believe that these are very important steps that we need to be taking as an administration at your direction to ensure that our elections are as secure as they possibly can be.
Okay.
Show, it's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking about election integrity and election security, President Trump's paper ballot initiative and the initiative to eliminate mail-in voting. My guest today is retired U.S. Army Colonel Conrad Reynolds of Arkansas, who is the host of the Colonel of Truth podcast and has been a very strong activist leading the fight to correct America's voting integrity with the American Voting Integrity Initiative. And Conrad, we were talking before about early voting and this mail-in voting issue, but there is a split on powers for voting in elections. However, in the Constitution, it says there is an election day. It even says what day it is. For federal elections in that Constitution. And I think the president's order, I hope, is going to address an election day, because I've heard him campaign on this, and I agree with him. Right. There should be an election day. We need to eliminate early voting and this mail-in voting because it's just a cesspool of potential fraud.
It is, and you ended the last segment with talking about the U.S. Constitution, and I think that's important to bring up, because it says in Article 1, Section 4, the time, place, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But The U.S. Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations except as to the place of choosing senators. So the whole point is in the U.S. Constitution, the federal government has a role to play. Yeah. And to act like they should not be involved at all is nuts. It's crazy. That's not what it says. And so what they can, particularly when it comes to electing federal offices, they can say no mail-in ballots. They can say that. Now, if the state wants to do mail-in ballots for their local elections or for their governor or whatever, they can do that.
Right.
But they can't, but the federal government can say, no, we're not going to have that for federal elections. And I think that they need to do that. And I think that President Trump and his administration are right on this. I wish that the original executive order that he did on the 25th of March had been a little bit better worded. And unfortunately, it had a lot of good things in it, but there are a couple of gray areas. And let me explain to you one. When they talk about the federal funding and cut federal funding, that sounds great. But that the organization that can do that is the Election Assistance Commission. The Election Assistance Commission has already said, well, we don't have a consensus of what that really means. We don't, the four commissioners, we don't have a consensus on that. And by the way, we don't have any money anyway. That's what they have said. They said, President Trump, although the executive order is out there, he's just a stakeholder in this. Because, see, they're an independent agency. So, and they get money directly from Congress. So there's a disconnect here. And we predicted this early on. We predicted that this is what would be happening. And we said that you got to have wording in the executive order that doesn't give them wiggle room or the ability to circumvent the executive order. But that's what they're doing right now. And that's why they're playing the rope-a-dope, if you will, to make sure that this thing goes all the way till November or December. And then they can say it's too late. We can't do anything before the primary because we don't have enough time to get prepared. The states can't do it. That's what they're doing right now. And if we got a minute, I'd like to talk a little bit about the critical infrastructure and the reason you can get rid of these machines today. The reason you can get rid of them is under the executive order in 2019 when it talked about critical infrastructure and it talked about the electronic components coming from foreign adversarial countries, that the Chamber of Commerce, the director, in this case would be Howard Lutnick, could right now say that these machines have these parts in them, which we know they do because they've been looked at. Even the CEOs of these companies have said they have foreign parts in them from China and other countries. They could right now say none of these machines can be used because of critical infrastructure, could have a national emergency. Right now, we could do that. Yeah. And you could say you can't use these in any of the elections in America. And that way, the only thing you have left is a paper ballot. And that's what we need to do.
Now, can a governor do that at his level or her level?
A governor,
under that law?
Governor, they don't have to use machines. Any state can go and do it immediately. A Secretary of State, if they're empowered by their legislature to do it. There are a couple of states that are designed a little differently, like in Wisconsin. They have a Wisconsin Election Commission. They're a little bit different. But, yeah, they can all say, based on what the president has said in the executive order, we can't use our machines. And the dirty little secret that other people don't know is that not one machine in America right now is even certified under the 2.0 regulation that's been in effect for a long time. None of them are. So none of them should be used, but they are. And that's where we're at with it.
And what have the people said? Do the people even know? Or is it just folks like you and I that are paying attention?
I think most people don't understand it. And they look to their leadership, their Secretary of State, their governor, to give them the straight answer. And when they're telling them, hey, we're the best in the nation, guess what? The Heritage Foundation just said Arkansas was #1 on election integrity, security. They say security. It's a complete joke. And, I think Heritage Foundation has got a lot of great things about it. And I'm not here to attack Heritage, but I am telling you that the scorecard that they come up with is a joke. Did you know who the #1 state was for election integrity in 2021? Let's
see. California.
No, Georgia. Georgia. Of all the problems Georgia had, they were by heritage, they said they're the number one. And, Louisiana was in the top 10, and they used DREs, these direct recording equipment, electronic equipment, with no paper trail, and they were in the top 10, and they still are in the top 10. It's crazy.
My last vote there in races I ran in, it was all entirely electronic. I took a picture of the screen, so I had a record of my vote.
Right. But they were in the top 10 according to Heritage.
Yeah.
So it's not about security, and people need to understand that whole grading system is useless when it comes to security, and we know that. But I think it's cover. I think they kind of give the states, that a lot of the red states, some cover with that. And so that bothers me, but we're going to fix that. We're going to get President Trump. I honestly believe he's going to have a new executive order, and I believe it's going to be very detailed. And these states are going to have to get rid of the machines. They're going to have to go to a secure paper ballot. And I want to be right there when we're doing it.
Here's what I hear. I mean, we've got races coming up for the state in 27, and one of the Secretary of State candidates is already going around, and I've had a couple of sit downs with him. And one of the things when I brought up hand counting, and he was in the Senate, and he was the chair of the election security committee, I think, in the state Senate for at least a term. But he was an election commissioner who ran the elections in his county before that. So he's got a lot of background in this. One of the things that he said, look, we can do hand counts of like a recount and an audit, but if you try to do 100%, you're going to have a personnel problem. What do you say when people say that?
I'd say it's time to quit and move on, let somebody else take the reins who can make it happen. We did hand count paper ballots for 200 years. I think that we can go back and do hand counts again. If you do it and break it down into smaller precincts, you can make it happen. The voting centers that they have right now make it very difficult. I agree. That's why we got to go back to precinct voting. I'd like to bring up one point here. I think it's something that's relevant, and that is we have one county in Arkansas that last year voted to go to paper ballots, even though everything the state was doing to stop them, even took them to the Supreme Court to keep them from being able to do it. The people in the Independence County, Arkansas, voted overwhelmingly, 63%, Democrats and Republicans, to go to a hand count paper ballot and get rid of the machines. And let me tell you, the pressure that we've gotten from elected officials in this state, all claiming gloom and doom about the problem. The same thing with Searcy County, our only other county that actually has already done paper ballots. That was a problem, and the three commissioners who ran that election, by the way, got 100% accuracy on their hand count in November, were brought up before the state election board, the state committee, and they sanctioned them, gave them letters of reprimand, and tried to kick them out for 14 years for running a perfect election. They made up some. It's unbelievable to try to punish them and put it in the paper that they had broken the law. And I mean, it's incredible. It's really incredible the amount of pushback. So as the old saying goes, if you're catching flack, you're over the target, right? Yeah. And that's where we're at right now. And thank goodness we got a few really great people that have helped us along this way. And I got to bring up Brian Norris. Brian is the guy in Independence County that led the effort to get enough signatures to get it on the ballot, and it passed. Brian's run for Secretary of State here in Arkansas, and he's the kind of guy that we need who's going to make a change, who's going to fight the state for the people in our state. And I couldn't say enough about him, but we need more like Brian Norris's across America. That's what we need. And we need the people in Congress to stand up and have the guts to say, I'm with President Trump. How hard is that to do? I'm with President Trump. I agree. They won't do it. Yeah. They won't do it.
Yeah, it's curious. It really is curious the amount of pushback. We got one last break we got to take, but I want to spend the next segment talking about the legal pushback and why are there really laws on the books that say a county election commission can't be paper ballots and hand counting? I mean, come on, man. That seems unconstitutional to me. Why hasn't it been taken up to the Supreme Court? We'll be right back with Conrad Reynolds talking election integrity, election security, paper ballots, stopping mail-in voting, everything the president says he wants to get done. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Two Clark County technical employees came forward completely independent of each other and explained that they discovered that the number of votes recorded by voting machines and stored on USB drives would change between the time the polls were closed at night and when they were reopened the next morning. In other words, votes were literally appearing and disappearing in the dead of night. When we attempted to verify the integrity of these voting machines, we were allowed only a useless visual inspection of the outside of a USB drive. We were denied a forensic examination. Finally,
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're talking paper ballots, ending mail-in voting, President Trump's initiative to get that done, and hand counts, and election security and integrity and machines, all with retired U.S. Army Colonel Conrad Reynolds of Arkansas. And Conrad, that clip there is just one. That's an example of what you're talking about. How we are being denied our right to see everything when it comes to how votes are tabulated and results are published. And that's wrong. I mean, even back in the day of mechanical machines, you were allowed to look inside the machine to see if it had been manipulated with, taking the sides of it off. I remember my dad doing that when he got out of the military on a couple of elections that he volunteered for. So it's just absolutely wrong. So tell me, are there really laws on the books in states that make it illegal to do paper ballots and hand counts? Really?
Well, they actually, one state, I can't remember if it was Illinois, but they were trying to make it illegal to do hand counts afterwards. But in Arkansas, what I was getting at, and I'll be quick here, it's one county called Searcy County, Arkansas, where they voted in their county, or the quorum court, which is their administrative body for the county, voted to go to paper ballots. By law, they can do that with no problem. They did, but they got so much pushback from the Secretary of State's office, and other people said, you're going to bankrupt your county. You can't do it. It's not, it's going to cost you too much money. Any justice of the peace that votes for this, we're going to primary them. We're going to make sure you don't get any money for federal grants for roads and bridges, Association of Arkansas counties. So we're not going to help you write any of that. So you're on your own. I mean, they did everything they could to bully them, and they go, no, we're going to pass it because the people want it. So they passed it. They conducted the election, the primary. They made a couple of minor mistakes, but nothing at all that resulted in any problem. But they got censured for the primary, and they got letters of reprimand. Then in November, when they did the general election, they had observers and people watching them and writing down notes. And then 6 months later, they charged them with all these different things that they did wrong. Instead of helping them in the election, they said, well, you didn't do this. One of the things they did, Rob, is they came to my organization and we rented to them, I think, about 9 or 10 cameras and 10 TVs, cheap ones from Walmart, that basically where they could have cameras set up over the table. So when they're counting and reviewing a ballot, anybody from the public could watch that exact ballot being counted. Right? That's a good thing. And we charged them $100 for the night. We said, it's $100 and we'll rent it to you. Well, according to the State Board of Election Commissioners, that was too cheap. That was too cheap. And that's what they were going to kick them out for 14 years for doing. Can you, that's the craziness of this. And these are all Republicans doing this. Okay.
Yeah, and they're just making it up. There's no legal foundation for that in the law.
No, they never called us and asked us, and they said, well, that's too cheap. I go, well, are you kidding me? I just went to Washington, D.C., or I'll put it this way. They rent a big U-Haul truck to move these machines from precinct to precinct, right, to move them around. Yeah. They pay $19.95 a day for a $60,000 truck. Is that too cheap? I mean, it's nuts.
Crazy.
It's nuts,
crazy.
But that's what they did, and that's what it. And we have a Secretary of State that was appointed by Sarah Huckabee because the Secretary of State ran for another office, so he had a 2-year vacancy in the Secretary of State's realm. So she appointed a guy. His name is Cole Jester, but he said, "Oh, they're guilty. They're guilty right off the bat, without even knowing the evidence." They just wanted to make an example out of them so that no other county, no other elected commissioner would want to do this, take on this headache, because, they don't get paid very much at all to take on the headache of being drugged down and your reputation. They tried to destroy these people. But you know what? They got the guts. They hung in there. They stayed. They went to the formal hearing. They did get a letter of reprimand, but they didn't get kicked out for 14 years, and they're staying there and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Which I'm very, very appreciative for. But the other thing that they didn't bring up, by the way, they said, well, you can't get something free. You can't get something free to do your job. Right. And that's why they were going after them. Well, they didn't get it free. They paid. But what they failed to talk about is, what about all the free locations that churches and these recreational centers give to them for the whole day to do elections?
Exactly.
I can't get it for free. But that's never mentioned. They never mention that. Yeah. Okay. But I do want to go back to one thing real quickly, because I want to make sure your audience understands. If you have a machine in your process, whether it is a tabulator, a touch screen, or electronic poll book, you will never be able to trust the results ever. And the idea that you can find out, the idea that you can do some type of kind of spot check or audit at the end and find out it's not possible. You cannot do it. So we must reject the machines at all counts. And let me tell you something. People can count these. You can pay them more money, but you can get people to count these ballots. We know that for a fact. Rasmussen did a poll. It's like 73% of the people would volunteer to be a hand counter. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that is what we need. But you do not need machines. If you've got a tabulator in there, you'll never know. And because they will never let you see the code. You'll never, and you don't even know, even if they show you, according to PhD Dr. Appel out of Princeton University, he said there's no guarantee the code you're seeing now is the one that they ran on the election day.
Yeah, because they put USB sticks in there. They put USB sticks in there, Conrad. You know this. And every time they put a stick in there, there's auto-loading software that goes on every single time. And all of that can be easily manipulated. Just look up the term, folks, buckshot Yankee, and you'll see how dangerous USB sticks are and why the U.S. military doesn't use them anymore. Well, we got a question over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that before we get to the end here. Go ahead, Shell.
We have True MAGA, sir.
Hey, thank you, Colonel. Thank you. I was just going to say the new level of control with AI. That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like a web of control that's preventing us from actually getting a free and fair election. I don't know why it's like the elite just want to stop us from doing that. And we keep chasing the web of this.
Do you have a question for the Colonel, True MAGA?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. So, I mean, are we going to be able to find the spider of the web is basically soon, hopefully?
That's a good question. Well, a friend of mine, Dennis Haw, who's a programmer, was the guy that Texas hired to look at the machines that they wanted to use. And the first, I won't say the company, but the first machine he looked at, I got a copy of the report. way back in the early 2000s. He told them it's got all these vulnerabilities, and they said, well, we're not going to use it. But then they went and got a machine designed very similarly. It did it anyway. Go ahead, Conrad.
Well, I believe the vulnerabilities are there on purpose. They're all built in on purpose. And so that way everybody has plausible denial. And so the whole point is, here is what you're going to have for a best system. Hand-marked, hand-counted, paper ballots that night. Small precincts, we must have ID. I would love to have the citizenship question. I know that's in litigation right now, but that is something that I think is important. And also paper poll books, clean voter rolls, and in-person one-day voting. If we have that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a level playing field for anybody running for office. And then what you're going to see a lot of these rhinos getting replaced. And also the Democrats. You're going to see it. Right now, there's no reason in the world, think about this for a second. We've got 32 Republican states, that we should have 64 Republican senators. Why don't we?
Yeah.
Why don't we?
You're right. You're right.
I mean,
you're right.
We don't. Why? Because I believe it's always want to keep that number under 60. And so you keep that filibuster rule in there, and then you can make sure that bills don't pass, that you don't want. And so that is why I think that we need to make sure we get paper ballots, we get the system that is going to be 100% accurate. We need to get that now, and then this is the only time. If we don't do it now, folks, we're never going to have another opportunity. But we've got a president who understands the problem, and he wants to do something about it. And I'm trying my best to help him. Will Huff and I were part of the AVII, the Arkansas now it's American Voter Integrity Initiative. We're trying our best to help the administration in every aspect of pushing this and making it happen.
Yeah, and we want to help, as a matter of fact. The one more question I had, Conrad, was
sure.
In their states, what do people need to be doing? Because folks ask me this question all the time. Well, what can I do about it as an individual and a citizen? So at the local level, what's their best action to get this ship turning in the right direction that they can do to help now?
Well, that's a big question. The pressure you're going to need can't come at the local level. What I found is most of the local level officials are captured by the Association of Counties, whatever state you're in. That's one. They don't want to go against that because that's kind of the organization they belong to. People in the election system love machines because nobody can be held accountable. If there's a problem, there's a glitch. It's a computer glitch. It's this, it's that. No one's ever held accountable. So they don't want to do that. It is right now that your opportunity is right now, because the president just put out, like I said, he wants machines gone and he wants mail-in ballots gone. Call your governor's office, get a group of people, talk to your local congressman and say, where do you stand on this? We need you to say yes or no, you're for this or not. And if not, we're going to have to put a lot of pressure on them to make sure that they do it. And I think that's probably the best thing you could do at the local level. But these machine companies, as that one congressperson told me, they have a lot of power. And they're a lot of power on Capitol Hill. And we've got to break that. And that can only be through the people. And hopefully it will happen soon. And I think it will.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think you're right. We're going to get on it.
All right.
I'm going to put my Gator Pack organization on it too, and we're gonna start getting active on this because now's the time. Now's the time. We got to get this done and can get it done. Well, Conrad, tell folks where they can find your show, find ABII, and those kind of things before I let you go.
Just go to avii.org. avii.org. That is my organization. We have a lot of material on my website if you want to read and know about what the professors are saying and what the articles that have said why you can't trust ballot marking devices and you can't trust any of these machines. Also what the gold standard is. The other thing is if you go to forttruth.com, Fort, F-O-R-T, truth, T-R-U-T-H.com, if you go to that, you're going to see videos of interviews I've done with the top leading professors of computer science and why they've all said for the last 15, 20 years we should not be using machines, but nobody's listening to them. So I think it's important now that we all start listening and we all start supporting these efforts like what you're doing, what I'm doing, in order to get the president and his administration on board right now. And I think we're going to do it. I hope so.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, sir. Conrad Reynolds, folks, go check it out. Sign up to help his organization. Tomorrow is Truth Thursday. My guest is Turning Point Action's spokeswoman, national spokeswoman, a Latina conservative, Driana Sixto. It's going to be a fantastic show. One of the things we are going to talk about is this Catholic act of terrorism on the Catholic school today by the trans terrorists that happened up in Minneapolis. So pay attention. And I'm wearing my Scottish plaid today, tie, in honor of the girls that raised the hatchet and the blade to defend themselves against the Muslim rapists in Scotland. You need to support them too. I'll see you tomorrow.